The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Business Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericabusiness.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to CIO Talk Radio with your host, Sanjo Gall. All comments, views, and opinions expressed on this show are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers. Here's Sanjo Gall.
Good morning and welcome to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. Today's topic is structuring ECR, which is enterprise cost reduction versus slash and burn. Our guests for today's show are Marty Menascio, who's also the Senior Vice President and CIO with JDS Uniphase. Good morning, Marty.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine today. How are you?
Very good. And we have Robert Ford, who's the CIO with Virgin Entertainment Group, North America. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
How's the coffee?
It's pretty good.
All right, so, we had been talking a lot about the downturn, and we don't want to be talking about it, but at the same time, we still are interested in reducing costs wherever we can, because bottom line is what allows us to take more money home. When we have done enterprise-level cost reduction, while we say it's enterprise level, but it's still in a very siloed mode. But we still did cost savings whenever we could. What exactly is driving this whole new wave of trying to structure the enterprise cost reduction? Marty?
Well, I think that you mentioned first that we are in a downturn, and so that's gotten everybody's attention. As you also said, we always should be looking at, appropriate cost structures, but this kind of gives us an excuse to even go deeper and to, challenge the organization in other ways.
Okay. So, Robert, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, you basically are always trying to find ways that you can run your business more cost-effective. You're looking at better business models. The retail space, you're constantly looking at ways that you can improve your margin. And in many ways, you're saying, well, can we improve our top line? But at the same time, you're saying, what can we do about controlling the cost on the bottom line? And it's pervasive. It sort of takes over every single thing that you do every single day.
It's not been that, we did not understand that cost savings is what we have to do. So we did that, and all this has been going on. If we created those cost savings, but they used to creep back up again in this area or some other area. So we just keep playing catch-up with respect to cost savings or the way you would structure the cost saving in an organization. So do we really have a handle on what is a typical mix of business and or IT processes that we should put in place, which will allow us to sustain these savings, at least in those areas where, we have put this once, unless otherwise we've changed something? And do we know where to start doing something like this? Robert?
Yeah, I think where you have to start is sort of right at the very beginning, at the top of the organization, and make sure that there's real clarity on what the strategic direction of the business is. This issue of cost reductions oftentimes seems to be almost individual or sort of rogue-type efforts, or as you mentioned before, down silos, where somebody may look at the business and say, well, this particular business unit or this particular service within the organization, we think they're spending too much money. And then if they go off and try to work on these things individually, they end up undermining, other factors of the business or other parts of it, and can actually cause more cost to occur. So if you get the business at the top aligned about where it's really headed and what it believes are the proper ways to go about doing this in terms of what processes are really required, what IT has to support and so forth, it helps you, almost like a classic sort of ERP type of project, to be able to go across the silos and find the opportunities anywhere within the organization, and then make sure that even when you're done cutting your costs, you still are delivering all the services and processes that you need to deliver.
Marty, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that you do have to start at the top, that there does need to be a strategy associated with this, and it has to align with what the company's strategic objectives are. And that if you do this in a functional way, then you are going to be doing more of a slash and burn sort of approach. I think you also need to make sure that you have good portfolio management of this sort of exercise in your company as well, too, so that you can track what you're trying to do both in the short term and in the long term.
So do you think many companies have a really clear vision of what would be, you can say, successful end result of such enterprise cost reduction? Marty?
I think that more companies are realizing that it can't just be a one-time event. Talking with peers at other companies, they actually are taking on structured approaches to this as well too. I think again what's happening in the financial situation globally right now is forcing people to actually take a structured approach as opposed to just kind of picking on an organization or a function as we probably have seen over the past couple of years.
Robert, what do you think where when we are trying to define baseline, do we really understand what costs to actually be targeted, and really how far down, how far sharp do we get with our knives?
Well, again, when you approach it from the functional standpoint, I think sometimes you can get way too sharp and end up, as I said before, causing cost to occur, say, within another function of the business. The strategic advantage and where everybody's working together, in an integrated fashion, I think helps you to make sure that you're not doing that kind of thing. And it helps you to get a better sort of aligned vision of where you're going to go, what functions and processes you still have to provide. And then you bring, multiple heads together from different parts of the business to actually look at it and say, hey, maybe we can save costs here, we can do it this way, or this is possible. And you can create a much better benchmark and an idea of what you think you can achieve. The whole issue sometimes gets to be that if you do it in a rush also, that you tend to make some very short-term decisions, and again, in the long term, are costing yourselves more. So back to Marty's point, truly it has to be a sort of a continual process nowadays that all eyes are on and are working together.
Now, you mentioned that this should be a continual process, and would you agree that in the past also this was an ongoing process, but then that also made it not a typical initiative? It was an ongoing, I would not use the word, I can maybe use the word chore, that's something which somebody has to do, but then we were not looking deep enough into it for it to be truly effective. So if we go back and we do not have a business case of how much money am I going to save from this enterprise cost reduction initiative in which I am investing too, so it's not coming free to us. So if there is no net positive, then why even bother? Marty?
Well, I think that, really if you kind of think about this as cost reduction only, then you're really selling yourself short. If you're going to think about this as a continual process, it's really about creating efficiencies across the enterprise. And in order to do that, you have to look at your processes. And processes are not functional. They actually are, across the enterprise. Business changes all the time with new product introductions, maybe addressing new customer markets. And so the way that you're conducting business has to be under, constant scrutiny about whether or not you are right-sized or right-focused for what your strategy and what your deliverables are. And that's, when you take a look at it that way, then it really does become constant process improvement or kind of a continual process for efficiencies as opposed to a one-time cost-cutting event.
Would you not have this as one-time cost-cutting event in a structured fashion where we do get a positive ROI with this initiative, and then do an action replay at a periodic time interval, which is predefined to some extent, which allows you to diagnose again what other costs have creeped in, or maybe when we look at it once again, we might find some other costs which we, ignored and or were not able to identify, which we could have slashed a little bit, and then this we can repeat the same process, but once we have the process down to a science, if you will, where every T is crossed and every I is dotted. Marty, do you think that is a better approach to doing it versus calling it ongoing, but then not having a way to measure what we're investing versus what we're reaping out of it as a benefit?
Well, I think if you have proper measurements and metrics in place, you can actually see how you're tracking. And so that could be another way where it kind of indicates to you that you are getting at a skew with whatever your objectives are that you set. So you have to go in and do a little bit of retrospective work there. So just setting things up on a periodic basis as opposed to having it be event-driven as well. I think you can get back into the trouble of, we only look at this once every 6 months, or we only look at this once every year and miss opportunities.
So, Robert,
Sandra, I would like to add on to that. The way you described that is exactly what we went through at Virgin. And, a few years ago, our business model was really challenged. At Virgin Megastores, our core product was CD and DVD. And we knew that that was going to start, we were going to start to lose a lot of share there and that we needed to start moving to other things. So we actually began sort of a transformation stage. And what you just described is also a transformation here. Yes, we definitely went in one time and said we really have to look through all the numbers, and it was sort of like one of those one-time events. And our CEO did a fantastic job of really pushing us to really look at our cost. But not everybody gets it immediately. It's not like everybody understands this new way of doing business right off the bat, and you have to continually, keep it moving along and continue to get it. I mean, it was fun to watch people's eyes sort of open and go, oh, I get it, as we were moving to a new business model, and some of the sacred cows or the way we always used to do things or the status quo started to get broken down and started to open up the ideas for, new ways of doing business, new ways of controlling costs, new ways of actually generating sales.
So, if we were to look at the reality, one is that we could have discussions like what we're having right now, and people can take something back from these discussions. But if we were to really create value, when rubber hits the road, what are a specific set of steps, at least fundamental set of steps that organizations can take, or the people who are running the show with respect to enterprise cost reduction? What should they do as the first set of steps for it to create the right foundation? Marty?
Well, the first thing, again, that you have to do is to identify and communicate what your vision is so that you can get everybody aligned to it. We have and use a company BHAG for that vision. And then as we go through the organizations being a portfolio company, each one of the portfolio segments have their own BHAG in accordance with the company BHAG. I'm part of the shared services function, which is essentially a support function for all of those business units, and so we have a BHAG associated with that as well, too. Each one of our BHAGs has key performance indicators that will tell us whether or not we are on track to achieve whatever that BHAG is, which is more of a 3-year vision. So that keeps us aligned. I think that's one of the most important places to start. Then, because you've established KPIs and metrics, you've got to look across the organizations at the dependencies to achieve those objectives. So again, it's really kind of starting at the top.
Anything that you'd like to add, Robert?
Oh, I think she put it very well. Again, it's that vision of sort of envisioning what business will be in the future and having everybody move in that direction. And that's obviously, having a vision and having strategy. And, I think she put it very well.
And I think one of the things that Robert said also was, making sure that, there are no sacred cows out there. And that's actually one of the things that is a downfall for many people. They just can't get out of the mold that they're in because everything is so personal. Success should be personal, not what you have already, behind you. It's really looking forward to that forward success as opposed to, again, kind of looking at what we have and what we've been doing traditionally.
Yeah, I think that the challenge sometimes when, this classic slash and burn is again, sort of sending every department head back off to go look at their own P&Ls and improve the numbers. But what we're talking about here is really a process. It's different where you say, let's talk about the business processes themselves. And let's ask ourselves, where do we want to be as a business? How effective are these? Are we getting there? And what is unnecessary at this point? And it's a business conversation. I love to describe that, there's a famous line about IT and business alignment, or business and IT alignment, however you want to look at it. That's a two-way street. It's not just about us knowing what initiatives to do to bring applications to bear on the problems that exist, but it's also when you start worrying about cost, you have to make sure that you're supporting all those business processes. So everybody has to work together.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back after these messages and look at that, yes, cost savings means dollars. Yes, we can save the money right from that exercise, but are there any other fringe benefits that we can get as we are going about this ECR effort? Please stay tuned. We'll be right back and discuss.
Up-to-date business and financial news. Call now and get the financial information you need. 866-472-5790. 866-472-5790.
The experts are here.
Voice America Business Network.
Looking for flexible ways to scale your IT efforts? Then visit www.avol.com today. Avol helps companies find the global IT talent they need to align their IT and business objectives. Whether it's hiring top IT leadership talent or building a reliable technology team, Avol delivers. To find out how Avol can help your company, visit www.avol.com or call 1-800-947-2832. Avol, delivering global IT talent. That's www.avol, A-V-V-A-L, avol.com. Visit today.
Now, Mrs. Johnson, before we close on your mortgage loan, I want to make sure you remember Mike.
Hi, you can trust me. I'm African American, just like you.
So, here's the low monthly payments and interest rates we promised, and here's where they triple.
The rest of this stuff is just here to make sure that we get your house when you can't pay us back.
What a lovely house.
Predatory lenders are never this easy to spot. Call us at 866-222-FAIR and protect yourself with the facts. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Fair Housing Alliance and the Ad Council.
Technology is changing the way we live our lives and how we do business. On CIO Talk Radio, we talk about the benefits of technology and the great things it allows us to do, as well as its risks. Heard every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific, Sanjay Gall interviews business leaders and other experts that are shaping the way we use technology. To learn more about the show, visit www.ciotalkradio.com. Keep up with the changing world of technology and listen to CIO Talk Radio with Sanjay Gall. Listen in every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific, right here on Voice America Business.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjay Gall.
Welcome back. So while we may be saving some dollars through this enterprise cost reduction effort, what fringe benefits could we get? Because while we are going about carrying this initiative, we must be changing things around. So typically, what other positives that we can see which would actually help make the business case for such an initiative in the first place? So Marty, you want to?
Sure. I think the main fringe benefit is really awareness and collaboration, because it is a cross-functional exercise. It's not just a siloed exercise. If you are, and you wanted to take a look at it from the fringe benefits to IT, one of the things that would show up there is that we're actually demonstrating that hard decisions need to be made, and that IT is not just a walk-up window for your every desire, and you really have to manage IT just like you would manage your product development portfolio. Take a look at life cycle management so that things that you're bringing in actually have, an end life cycle as well, too. Traditionally in IT, things come in and they never go back out. So, I think that this is an awareness that the business should understand that IT has to function as a business function as well, too. And there are things that IT needs to do to run the IT business effectively and efficiently as well.
Robert?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest fringe benefits you get ultimately when you start achieving the benefits is flexibility. I mean, you've been sinking a lot of dollars and cents into activities that necessarily don't need to be done anymore, and they've essentially that's money that's spent on status quo, and is not giving you what you need to actually go after other opportunities. So going through the organization and making sure that, for example, in IT, that the only services you're providing are only the services that the business needs, and that you're doing them as effectively as possible. It leaves you now in a nimble position to go on and take on other activities that can benefit the organization.
If you had to go back to the executive management and literally itemize some of the fringe benefits, intangibles will be taken with a grain of salt. Are there any tangibles which have a dollar value attached, but still are fringe benefits to this easier to make this as a stronger case? Robert?
Well, one of the projects I undertook was to go through and look at all our telecommunications cost and realize what were all the needs across our organization. And when we went ahead and did that, we found a project that was able to save us as much as a 60% in some of our store locations. But not only did we just save that money then at that point, but by choosing the system that we chose, we were now in a position that we had laid out an infrastructure, a groundwork that was much more flexible and was ready for us to take on new things like the implementation of a new loyalty system, implementation of a new POS system to allow us real-time polling throughout our store enterprise and actually to be able to go, shift our environment to become a much more of a real-time environment. So, you talk about obviously we had to save cost because that was really what was the driver at that point. Our home office cost and when you look to Alliance communication costs were way too high for our organization. But we were able to do it in such a way, too, that by looking at the business needs and working together, we were able to provide other value.
With, the CFO, if you go and ask a CFO, he or she will always be game for enterprise cost reduction. But who essentially should be the driver of this? Who should be, holding this as something that they have to deliver as an individual or as a subgroup? Marty?
I think it's the executive staff.
But are they not more the type of people who have to give the directive versus actually drive it?
So they need to be accountable for it. Again, it's cross-collaboration. So if your executive staff is not accountable and responsible for this, then who below them is going to be able to do this?
So would there be a deck to grab, would you think?
I think it's all of us in this together. I mean, we are trying to make the business profitable, so, we have to contribute to this together. Not any one function is going to be able to accomplish this on its own.
So when we are talking about this whole effort, and we also want to join the innovation bandwagon, where we want to do new things, because people at some time would say, oh, you know what, cost reduction, we're done with it. There's only so much you can squeeze out of a penny. Let's look at the top-line growth, so let's innovate. Let's try to introduce new things. If you have that happening, would this enterprise cost reduction initiative not become a moving target? Because with innovation, you will bring also new things which you would want to toy with. And it'll bring uncertainty, it'll bring lack of structure, and there goes your enterprise cost reduction, which is supposed to be a structured effort. John? Or Robert?
Yes, every time you add something new, you're introducing potential new complexities, and you're introducing, in complexity you can have extraneous cost. That gets back to the point that Marty and I were making earlier, though, that this isn't a one-time thing. This is sort of ingrained and ongoing. If these decisions of cost and innovation all are being made, again, at that sort of executive level in an integrated fashion, then everybody can see what the impact will be across all the various functional areas of the organization, and they can speak up soon, and they can try to make sure that we don't get into any, problems and really, dirty drawers and all that other stuff, which you have to go back and clean out later. I think, again, it does need to be stay in sort of an integrated way.
Yeah, and I think that, if you go back to the strategy, one of the reasons why you may be embarking down this path is that you want to feed your innovation. So that would be part of the strategy associated with, we're going to reduce costs over here, and we're going to make some investments over there. When I first got to JDSU, I kind of looked at what was going on in the IT organization, and I said, we are not spending enough money on moving the ball ahead. and or moving the bar. And I said we will spend whatever is in our maintenance bucket. So I'm going to reduce our maintenance bucket because if it's this big, we'll spend it. If it's a little bit smaller, we'll spend whatever that is. And so I just artificially reduced it until people started screaming for pain. And that actually got them to start taking a look at how we can do things differently and change the status quo.
So, one of the things here, too, when we keep using the term cost reduction and enterprise cost reduction, I think that term is a little bit misleading and almost gets people to look at only one side of this. What we're talking about here right now is it's not always just reducing the dollars, but it's reallocating the dollars, putting them to the greatest use. Certainly, as Marty's case there, and I've done it the same in mine, is that we're trying to take dollars out of certain areas and obviously, not spend money that doesn't need to be spent, but to allocate it into other areas such as innovation and things that can drive the business forward and drive other revenue. So it's, sometimes when you call it cost reduction, people immediately think it's budgets and bring sort of certain personality to the task. I really think it's something more than just cost reduction. It's really about proper prioritization of spending across the organization.
Now, since any business process or any technology aspect of a given initiative, that is dependent on people. People come and go from an organization. So if we have created one strategy of this is how we squeeze the penny from this area and this is how we reallocate another, there are some changes that are happening in the organization all the time. Are we able to sustain that efficiency, if you will, or effectiveness, the way the dollars are being spent over a long period of time? What is that secret sauce that you feel that could make this happen, in spite of all this change that would happen with people?
Well, for us, it's our BHAG and our KPIs. That's constant. That doesn't change unless it needs to, right?
So you feel the KPIs are not subject to misinterpretation by the next person who'd come?
Well, there are definitions and formulas associated with them and how you look at it. So when the next person comes, I would invite whoever the next person is in any function to re-examine that to see if there's a better way to account for implementing the strategies that we have in place. A fresh set of eyes is always a good thing. So,
Robert, question is, if you have to once put an organization and where you've got this cost reduction initiative being put in place, and you found a way to optimize it to the nth degree, could you sort of immunize that portion so that we don't have to touch it ever again? Never say never, but still for theoretical purposes, you're done with that group. Like almost like object-oriented programming. You test one object, it's all done. We don't touch it, we just reuse it.
Well, going back a little bit to your previous question, I don't think you should have a situation where there's one throat to choke. I think it should be, an integrated effort where it starts to become ingrained in the organization. It leaves you capable of dealing with, the loss of key individuals and so forth along the way, because you're now starting to just sort of establish it as a core value. And at that point in time, you start to build up some immunity. The thing that has to be accepted, though, is that business is all about change. There's always something new coming along. And so what you once thought was immune, you might start to find it's a little diseased and you have to sort of go after it. But now it's not the slash and burn approach, because you've got a situation now where you're, as a group, are continually reviewing all of your costs. As you add on new things to the business, you say, okay, let's go through the same process we've done before. Is this effective? Are we getting, bought into something that's not going to work for us, right? Or is just going to add a lot of cost over in this one area? And people go through a due diligence process. So I think that's sort of how you're going to build up that immunity.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back after these messages and look at the way M&As, which is also becoming the wave, and whether it's downturn or upturn, it doesn't matter. We still have that as a biggest disruption that could happen to any organization. And in that case, yes, we see that enterprise cost reduction could become a great initiative. when the business is running as usual, creating a business case and saying that, yes, we just have to wake up and do it. It's same thing like we do with security, same thing like we do with compliance. It's always tough to tell that, okay, I want to spend the money to save money. How do we make that happen? Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
Do you need directions to solid financial future? If so, the Money Answers Show with Jordan Goodman will provide you with a roadmap to making smart money decisions in every area of your personal finances. Join Jordan every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern for the Money Answers Show on the Voice America Business Channel. Learn how and where to get the best deals on mortgages, cars, and insurance. Find out the best ways to save for college and retirement. Get out of debt, improve your credit rating, and save on your taxes. The Money Answers Show with Jordan Goodman will provide you with great tips on investment opportunities in real estate, stocks, annuities, and other investment vehicles. That's the Money Answers Show with Jordan Goodman on the Voice America Business Channel every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Adding fractions is nothing.
For real?
Look, these are denominators. You multiply this one so that it's the same as that, then you add them up.
Man, that's easy.
Charles Bennett dreamed of returning to the old neighborhood as a teacher, but without money for college, only half of his dream came true. He's back in the old neighborhood.
Well, enough math. I gotta deliver these sandwiches.
Please support the United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. A message from the UNCF and the Ad Council.
Looking for flexible ways to scale your IT efforts? Then visit www.avol.com today. Avol helps companies find the global IT talent they need to align their IT and business objectives. Whether it's hiring top IT leadership talent or building a reliable technology team, Avol delivers. To find out how Avol can help your company, visit www.avol.com or call 1-800-947-2832. Avol, delivering global IT talent. That's www.avol, A-V-V-A-L, avol.com. Visit today.
From the boardroom to you, Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjog Gal.
So, Robert, with M&A, we can definitely see this enterprise cost reduction to be a natural thing to do after the fact, or even start doing the due diligence before. When the business is as usual, how do you go about creating a strong business case? Because somebody has to spend money to make money or to save money going forward.
Well, in our case, a few years ago, we were facing some real industry challenges and needed to sort of rework our business model. So that was sort of what stimulated us to approach this from a new direction. Plus, we had a new CEO who had a strong financial background. So that we knew that we had to bring our operating costs down, and also knew that we needed to make investment in other areas. So the business case was somewhat there. You know, the driver was right there for us. And then, obviously, we started to go off a little bit in the individual approach, and everybody tried to find some cost savings. But then we started realizing, as we started talking as a group, that we were going to undermine each other in those efforts. And that's when we got, sort of on board with the whole ECR approach, and as what I've described earlier about being very integrated in our thinking and so forth. So we had a vision where we needed to be. We knew that we needed to bring our home operating costs down to a certain level in relation to the revenues coming from our stores and so forth. And that vision, helped us to go about, and we started to set benchmark levels. We envisioned what the business would look like in the future, and we as a group discussed what the cost of running a business like that would be, and then we started aiming in that direction.
Marty?
Yeah, I think that we've done some similar things. We actually had a CEO change at the beginning of the year.
You're fading out, Marty, a little bit.
Sorry. We've been looking at things very similar. We have discussions at the executive staff around how should the business be structured based upon the business today and where we want to take the business in the future. It's all about a structured approach about re-engineering as opposed to kind of a functional approach. What we do is we look at things like a value index and a risk index before going on and taking on any large initiative, because you really want to understand what the chances of success are. And then we go about developing a full business case where that value is identified in the form of investment and return, and what's the timing for when that return is expected, so you can see if you've actually got the right efforts applied for the value that you're planning on getting.
With IT being a beneficiary, but also it could contribute in some fashion because a lot of data has to go back and forth, or information has to be going back and forth. Collaboration has to happen. What are the typical areas where IT is looked upon when we embark upon such an initiative? Marty?
Well, these are all business initiatives. They're not IT initiatives. As a business function, I do have IT initiatives where I might want to restructure our telco, or I might want to restructure how we provide services. I need to put together a business case for IT to do those projects as well.
But as an enterprise cost reduction, would you not have, as IT leader or as your crew, somehow support so that the whole organization sees one version of the truth? They see what's exactly happening. Everybody's kept informed. Everybody's able to collaborate with respect to this program to be really effective. Do you not have to put anything in place with respect to, is IT not called upon to help out with this ECR, other than just dealing with your own projects or wherever you have to reduce your own costs?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Those would be the business initiatives that we are executing on, and those all have business cases with value and time to value associated with it. We report on that on a monthly basis, so we track what's in the portfolio that we're currently working on, what's our time to value for that portfolio, and then post-go live, we look at, depending upon the project, either a 30-day marker or a 60-day marker to do a post-mortem on, are we on track to the value? Because we don't want to get a year down the line and find out that that project that we did last year actually did not produce the value that we thought it would. If we do that check-in earlier, we can see what we need to maybe adjust to get back on track to what the projections were.
So what do you think are the typical business intelligence or dashboarding related things that you could do for the business that will wow them and also may help them run this program better?
Well, we do things like we produce a monthly dashboard on the current portfolio, and then also including, like I said, projects that have already gone live where we are tracking according to the value that we expected. Now, these are all, most of the time, these are all business value metrics. And so we're working with the controllers of those business units to track the costs associated with it. They're the ones that are signing up for the value.
So, Robert, what do you think what you would have done over the years which would have allowed you to help organizations run such initiatives on a continual basis as an IT leader, or what you would have done along with your crew?
Well, I think, in some ways, IT is usually looked upon as sort of one of the better sort of project managers within the organization. So we just brought sort of a project management approach to it to help get, the activities organized. We also have a portal inside our organization where a lot of information is used to shared for collaboration purposes, and our data warehouse and the KPI reports that come out of that are used as the measurement tools. So, we've provided, obviously, some support in that direction.
We have enterprise cost reduction as an initiative, but then we also have enterprise performance management as an initiative. Don't they collide at some point, or do they not work against each other? Marty?
I don't think they work against each other. I think it's around the concept that we were talking about earlier about where do you spend your money? Can you take money out of your operational costs and move those into value investments?
But would you, since you don't have a crystal ball, you do not know many times at the time when you're really reducing the dollar amount that's being spent. Yes, we can do a lot of due diligence, but then you will also see an indicator, or somehow you should get a feed from the enterprise performance management to see, hey, I reduced X number of $1,000 from this initiative, so it took a dip. It's almost like, you try different medicines on a human body and see which one works the best.
Right. Well, the comparison you're making literally right now is like controlling cost and top-line sales, and you're talking about a margin calculation. And it is always moving. That's why we have these tools established so that we, and to Marty's point earlier, about 30, 60 days, but the kind of tools that we can look at these things quickly and catch any issues fast. I don't think they work against each other. I think they sort of work with each other.
Would there be some hit and trial connected with enterprise cost reduction, or would you actually have an absolute, you can say certainty, you can say, yes, this is what we should do and we will go with it? Robert?
I think like with any big initiative, you should really sort of, bite off only a little bit at a time and make sure that, it's going to taste right, that it's going to go down well. And in our efforts, we picked on a few very key strategic areas that we needed to focus on, and saw benefit out of those, and saw how the process needed to get improved, how we had to work on communication, how again it took a while for people to transform and understand what we were up to as an executive unit, and then eventually we got to the stage where it started to become more ingrained in our everyday process. So I think you certainly should do some things, quickly and learn from those and then move on.
Marty, what do you think?
Yeah, I think to that point, it's really sometimes it's not about what you are doing. In some ways, it's about what you don't do, and actually being very clear on the things that you don't do, so people aren't expecting things.
And sometimes enterprise cost reduction, which actually could be a wrong phrase to use, enterprise cost realignment, but then that also is, people read between the lines, and that could also mean reduction in force. And or it could be misinterpreted as a looming reduction in force. And the people who are involved in it may see the axe hanging over their head. Do you think you can get the crew to work at their optimum capacity or efficiency or effectiveness if such a perception is looming? Marty?
I think that, so we address this as lean enterprise, and at first the connotation of lean enterprise in everybody's mind meant, we're going to cut heads. And so you have to provide evidence along the way of the fact that you have done some initiatives, and these were the benefits associated with those initiatives. And guess what? It wasn't always about cutting heads. In some cases, it was around realigning heads or moving heads to do more value productive work.
Let's take a break. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a bit like, again, it gets to this sort of silo approach, and there's a diagram that I love to draw at this stage where I'll show, well, let's look at costs in Department A, Department B, Department C, and let's look at the cumulative cost for that process or that function, and you'll realize that for some reason we all agree that it's too much. So then as you go through this sort of realignment effort, and yes, the people involved realize that now there may be some pressure to bear on their particular business unit, you now can say, look, we're going to take some dollars out of these areas and say, but we're actually going to add some more expense, for example, or realign some costs into this particular area. But the net result is that we've reduced this process by, let's say, 50%. When you have that done very transparently, and there's a vision of what's trying to be accomplished, even though there are people involved who may have the axe over their head, as you put it, they usually can see why. And can then start to make some adjustments. This whole thing about ECRs we're talking about, it isn't just dollars and cents, though. It is definitely, a people management thing. And the way you always tackle that is by providing vision, as we talked about earlier.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back after these messages and talk about a couple of, let's take an inventory of the typical mistakes that you would have seen people making as they go about this enterprise cost reduction initiative or realignment initiative, so that the listeners are able to get a benefit of what is a mistake and not make those expensive mistakes. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
Looking for flexible ways to scale your IT efforts? Then visit www.avol.com today. Avol helps companies find the global IT talent they need to align their IT and business objectives. Whether it's hiring top IT leadership talent or building a reliable technology team, Avol delivers. To find out how Avol can help your company, visit www.avol.com or call 1-800-947-2832. Avol, delivering global IT talent. That's www.avol, A-V-V-A-L, avol.com. Visit today.
Mom? Dad? How long should I wait for you? Mom? If I'm at soccer practice. What if something happens? Will you come get me? Should I stay where I am and wait for you? Or go to Grandma's house since it's closer? Should we pick a place to meet?
There's no reason not to have a plan in case of a terrorist attack.
Mom, if you're not home, should we go to the neighbor's house? How do we keep in touch with each other if the phones don't work? Should I be worried how we all get home?
And some extremely good reasons why you should.
Can you tell me?
Everybody should have a plan. Take 5 minutes to talk about where you'll meet and how you'll get in touch with each other in an emergency. For other things you can do to be prepared, visit www.ready.gov. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Ad Council.
Let's sing that new song. My music track, from the modem jack, plays MP3s, and I download fast. I read the bits on the microchips, and I burn all my favorite hits.
By the 6th grade, many girls lose interest in technology, but parents can help keep them updated. Go to girlsgotech.org.
A public service announcement brought to you by Girl Scouts of USA and Ad Council.
Self-leadership is more important than corporate leadership. In the hustle and bustle world we live in, we need to be reminded that in all failures and successes, we are the common denominators. Each week, let Daniel Gutierrez help bring you the tools you need to manage self-leadership, resulting in self-success. Make your mark in your industry. Make sure you listen to Right Here, Right Now. Brought to you by Waste Management every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Business Channel.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjo Gal.
Welcome back. So, let's take an inventory of the mistakes people have been making and can potentially make as part of the enterprise cost reduction and or realignment initiative. So, Robert, let's start with you.
Well, as I said, it's sort of a transformation project, and when you start off first with a vision, and you're starting to share that vision at your executive team, and then you let the organizations go off, or the business units go off and do all the work all by themselves, I think you should have a problem there. I think what it is that we saw this in some of our own early efforts, is that we thought, okay, well, we have a vision and then everybody can go off and do their thing, but they're still doing it in silos. We realized that literally to sit down and compare budgets and opportunities to reduce costs and so forth still required collaboration, even outside that major meeting. I think that would prove to be pretty important for us. So that I would sit down with the IT budget and be sitting down with the business unit and saying, what are the initiatives, based on the vision we have, what are the initiatives you need to start, and what are the things that you don't need to be doing anymore, and we would work together and find ways to make the vision come possible. When we didn't do that, though, when everybody still said, okay, I got it, and they went off to their own, you still slip right back into that sort of functional, siloed approach again, and the results weren't good.
Marty?
Yeah, I think in addition to the vision, you have to take a look and make sure that your baseline costs have been established so you know where you're starting from. I think you do have to do that inventory of what are my services and are they the right services. And if you don't, again, so you can track back to where we were versus where we are today and where we're going, because you need to be transparent in what your objectives are and what it is that you're looking to accomplish, so that way you can get people on board for you. So there's got to be a strong governance and project management methodology associated with these sort of activities.
Are there any pet peeves that you may have overheard as a water cooler conversation among two employees, unaware of someone who's a stakeholder or somebody who's actively involved in running this initiative, which would open their eyes that, while we are doing this, this is also causing people some concern, besides, of course, the job loss, potential job loss?
Well, I think change is uncomfortable for people. And so the things that you probably hear at the water cooler is, are all the why nots. Why can't we do this as opposed to what can we do? And that's really where you need to, just motivate your staff to look at the whys, to reward people that are actually moving the bar, so that others can look at those people and say, hey, that person's not very different from me, and they're doing this, why can't I? Those are the people that you want to have around.
Yeah, typically the water cooler conversations you overhear, you almost immediately become aware too that they're not aware of the whole big vision. It hasn't filtered down to them or been explained to them well enough. So it's usually they're clinging to something in the status quo. They don't quite understand why change is being thrust on them, and they don't understand what the benefit of that change is going to be. So as we talked about, you sort of start this at the top down. It really is important to filter that message all the way through to the rank and file of the organization so they understand, and to Marty's point, and they start diving in and participating quite well too. It also gives people time to embrace the change that's coming. As you talk about fear of a person losing their job, it gives them a chance to try to realign themselves within the organization in an effective manner. And, it then makes this whole sort of change come about much more smoothly.
Right, I think they need to know how they're involved in this and how they affect this. And if they don't have that tie, then you are going to have the, kind of the negative water cooler talk.
Exactly.
Last question, 1 minute left, very quickly. Do you think there is any standard cookie cutter, not exactly cookie cutter, but close to something which is predictable, methodology that has been developed around this area for this to become a science yet? Robert?
Well, I think there's some good business practices and good project management practices and things that we've talked about already here. I personally haven't seen any overarching methodology that's perfect in this area because every organization approaches it differently, and I think there's as much art and personality as there is science to this. So I would say in my experience, no.
Marty?
I just think you have to look at the details. So you can't be afraid to dig in.
So do you think Six Sigma could be something which people can live with and make that as a tool, or is that just somebody would have tried it and they thought no?
Six Sigma is one of the tools that people would use for this. That's part of the digging in. We use Lean Enterprise, which is really all around customer focus and elimination of waste. Okay. Again, tied to Six Sigma.
All right. So on behalf of the show and the listeners, really thank you so much, Marty and Robert, for sharing your thoughts about should this be a structured enterprise cost realignment / reduction initiative, or this should be a slash and burn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we already see that there's no doubt about organizations always trying to find ways to improve the bottom line by cutting costs wherever possible. However, most of the times this effort is not as structured and is done in silos. So an enterprise cost reduction initiative, in fact, could be a change management where it could be a change management initiative which requires, say, sponsorship from the top and buy-in from all of them who are involved. Otherwise, you'll see those negative water cooler conversations. And IT leadership needs to work closely with business, starting from the planning phase all the way towards the implementation and make this a success. So have your organization embarked upon ECR, that is Enterprise Cost Reduction, and now we have renamed it, I guess, Enterprise Cost Realignment in your organization? How did it go? Did you find value in it? Please send us your thoughts to views@ciotalkradio.com. That is views@ciotalkradio.com. Thank you again for listening to CIO Talk Radio. This is Sanjog Aul, your talk show host. Till next week, take care and God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. Join Sanjog Aul next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific for another hour of CIO Talk Radio.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Voice America Business Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericabusiness.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.